Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is freight downturn, what winners do to gain ground, with the great and powerful Nick Klingensmith. How's it going, Nick?
I'm awesome, Joe. How you doing?
Doing great. So, Nick, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
All right. I am Nick Klingensmith. I am a motivational speaker at Stride Motivation, and we are currently in Clearwater, Florida.
And I know, Nick, you are from the logistics space. I know you work quite a bit in our space. So talk a little bit about the kind of work you've been doing over the last couple of years.
So after about 15 years working in the 18 years working in the 3PL space, that's what the industry will do to you. I left just about 2 years ago to become a motivational speaker and a coach. And so I've been working with teams, delivering keynotes and coaching individuals and sales teams.
Yep. And Nick, I have worked with you and always kicking me in the right direction, because sometimes you need to be kicked. And I think we're going to talk about it today. Some of the things that you talk about with your customers, including me, is, let's get this messaging right, kind of sales basics, but so much of it is motivational. And I think we're talking about the down freight market. And you've given me the lecture before that, there's always going to be a reason not to be successful. I love what you're doing. And I think it's so important right now.
Even when we were talking before, I was thinking about it. I started selling in the fall of 2001. So just post 9/11.
Right.
I started in the middle of a financial apocalypse, right? And then I remember all the empty warehouses in 2008, 2009. I remember hiring people at pennies on the dollar in 2013 because of there's always been a challenge. And kind of like we talked about earlier, I had the exact same conversation yesterday with someone in the completely different industry, citing all the same issues and problems that we're hearing from everyone in and around the logistics industry. It's not just the industry. It's not just the market. It's the economy. This is the weather.
Yeah. And regardless of the weather, if it's hot, go do your job. If it's cold, go do your job. If it's raining, go do your job. And I think we'll talk more about it, but I think in a lot of ways, we let that anxiety seep into us, and every decision becomes a little more labored. Every decision is colored a little bit, but what if? And I think we all want the wind at our back. We want the market to turn. And basically, I use this term myself. I don't want to change anything about me, but I want to be successful. So I want to win the lottery is what it comes down to. I want to go pay my $1, $2, whatever it is, and get millions of dollars. I didn't have to change a damn thing about me. But most people, if you want to get to the next level, you have to change yourself. And I think in these difficult times, people get a little tighter. They clench.
And that's across the board. And one of the things when I used to be a sales trainer at a large 3PL, and I was constantly training 22-year-olds who had never seen a landline before, I actually tried to really humanize the problems that businesses face by putting them in perspectives that they have. It's like, all right, you graduated thinking you're going to make $80,000 out the gate instead of 40, and I'm making numbers up here. Gas prices rising. You have problems, and businesses face the same issues. So you can relate to what somebody's going through. We all face stress and anxiety, and most of it has to do with things beyond our control. And I'll tell you what, we are in a different world too, because there are a lot of people out there who, of course, have anxiety about keeping their jobs, but their livelihood is not contingent upon success or failure of adding new business, of growing business, of having profitable business, like people in sales and entrepreneurs, where it's all about the next dollar.
Yep. We'll get into all those topics in just a minute. Nick, tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you started Stride Motivation, and then why did you start Stride Motivation?
All right. I was born and raised on the island of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. And it's the people who go visit for the summer who are the rich people. I grew up serving coffee and muffins to all the tourists as they would come in and travel for the summer, but I absolutely loved it. I was extremely lucky to grow up there. As I got older, I worked as a private investigator and executive protection and security for a couple of years, and that's probably a good story for another day. I went to University of Massachusetts for college, where I studied legal studies and history. I thought I was going to pursue a career in law and ultimately even work for the FBI one day. And instead, I got a job in telecom sales, and that was 24 years ago. So I sold telecom in Western Massachusetts for about 5 years. And then I moved down to Florida, where I started working for a small DHL reseller that today is now known as Blue Grace Logistics.
Oh, wow.
I was a seventh person working there, and I was very fortunate to be part of that growth and helping to build that company over time. And my personal story interlaps here because 20 years ago is when I was diagnosed with cancer for the first time. And over the course of about 10 years, I was diagnosed with cancer 3 times. I became a type 1 diabetic. I have several herniated discs from several different car accidents, fatality car accidents. I have sleep apnea. I have nerve damage, and I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Oh, wow.
And as my career began to flourish, was really also the point in my drinking where I was no longer in control and the alcoholism hit its peak. I wasn't a daily drinker. I didn't get drunk every time I drank, and bad things didn't happen every time I got drunk. But there just became a point more and more where it was about the booze and not me. But my career flourished over that time until it finally came to a halt, where I was supposed to be the speaker at our conference in Las Vegas. And instead, I was thrown out of the hotel for supposedly getting in a fight and trying to have sex with a hooker in a broom closet while my girlfriend slept down the hall.
Nice. Nice touch.
Yeah, there are some good conference stories out there, and that's just not really going to be one of them. So it's the best thing that happened to me because there was nowhere for me to run. There was nowhere for me to hide. And when I finally was able to, my head hit the pillow that night, I said out loud, God, I don't want to live this way anymore. And it's been 11 years and 2 weeks since the last time I've had to have a drink. So the story has a happy ending. And the next 2 years from there were amazing. The first year was about really cleaning up the wreckage of my past. And I was really able to, I'm going to say restart my career because it was already in there, but I got to look at it from a different perspective. I no longer had to chase my ego. I didn't have to live in fear and resentment anymore. I got to focus on just beginning to help others. And so that's when my transformation also began to happen. But it was the second year when I was diagnosed with cancer for the 4th time. And it was just a couple months after that, my boss at Blue Grace at the time asked me to do a Spartan race with him, which is an obstacle course race. And this one was about an 8-mile race. And it was something that I had no desire to do whatsoever. But I said yes. And I joined him on that adventure. And that was 117 Spartan races, 6 major marathons, 100 other suffer fest and endurance fest. I've now written 2 books and I get to speak about it. So ultimately that chain of events is what led to a complete change in my life. And now what I do now. Ultimately why I started Stride Motivation is I have a message to give, and Stride is a vehicle in which I have the opportunity to share it.
Yep. And I know you just spoke at the Broker Carrier Summit. I've seen that video. I was supposed to be at the Broker Carrier Summit. I kind of was a last minute scratch. I'm always hate it when there's so many conferences I want to get to, and Broker Carrier Summit's one of the better ones. And I know you spoke at it, and it was a very successful speech. I think that was the only, I don't know this, but I think it was the only speech where you get a standing O.
That's actually, Trey said that right after that.
That's Trey Griggs, the great and powerful.
The Wizard of Oz, yes.
Yeah. And again, I've been working with you on sales stuff, and you've been invaluable to me. And I know friends who you work with, and this is a difficult time. And I think people need the extra motivation, but it's also it's not just motivation. It's also tangible sales actions have to be taken. I think a lot of us can relate to the raw part. I was super motivated, but what you'll always say is it's not about motivation, it's about discipline. And you got to get that motivation until you get to a place where you say, I've been motivated to do this the right way enough times that it became the way I live.
It's I don't even care for the word discipline. I'll be honest. That's Jocko loves to say that. And it's a great marketing line. But most of the people who post that stuff are the most undisciplined people I know. And I'm one of them.
No.
You should see the rest of my house. All right. I'm sloppy. I'm not that disciplined. I'm very purpose driven, which is a fancy word for motivation. However, I'm wildly connected to my purpose. And the area that I think I help people, which gets confused as motivation, is action. Because when I get you started at something, right, that gives you the spark. And then when you create the habits, we can call it discipline if you want, but that's ultimately what we're trying to do is we create those better habits for success.
Yeah. I love quotations, right? To motivate me to do the right stuff. But one of the things I've become convinced of is the stuff you do every day is more important than the stuff you do every once in a while. So as adults, we brush our teeth in the morning and usually when you go to bed, you don't even give it any thought. By the way, you talked about being an alcoholic. I bet while you're an alcoholic, you never forgot to brush your teeth before you went to bed. Because it became so ingrained in you. This is what I do. And I think that's the kind of routine you want to have. So it's not scary. You go, oh, I hate brushing my teeth. You don't even give it a second thought. You ever brush your teeth and then walk away and then you go, did I brush my teeth? And you got to go touch your toothbrush because it's so second nature. That's the stuff that you want to get to with your career, where you say, I just do stuff automatically. I don't have to think about it. There's no decision fatigue. I just did it because it's what I do. It's who I am.
And there's two major things that both have everything to do with whether it be a physical transformation or a professional one. Is the first thing we have to recognize is the work that leads to success in sales sucks. It's okay to admit it. It sucks. And that's why it pays a lot. If it didn't suck, this would be a minimum wage profession and nobody would do it. So number one, when we talk about embracing the suck, mean it. If you want to make a lot of money, you want this to be hard. All right. Otherwise, I don't know, go work somewhere else where you don't have to have a challenge and you can be fine making.
You don't have to ever put yourself out there. You don't have to embarrass yourself. You don't have to be rejected. You don't have to be rejected.
Such is a good thing. That said, the second part is we do have to make a change. We do have to make a change. And oftentimes it is our relationship with what is uncomfortable. And change is uncomfortable. And I'm just going to give you an example because we're talking about habits and routine, right? Most people do have a routine, whether they think so or not. And if you are in the profession long enough, you will develop a system or a process that you believe works for you. However, at some point, you're doing what's comfortable. And if you are not where you want to be, we have to look at the actions that you take throughout the course of the day and say, what has to change? And sometimes it means that I need to stop doing something or I need to do it at a different time. It's not always about, I just have to grind more. Sometimes you might just need to grind at a different time, but it's uncomfortable to change that routine, that habit. Sometimes we do it. I get in the habit of always trying to front load my day with the worst stuff. Do what you like least first. Rip the Band-Aid off, get out of the way. The rest of the day is gravy. But there also has to come a point where I have to ask myself sometimes, is this actually the most effective way to do this? It's become comfortable for me, but is this what's going to help me achieve my goals? And because we're talking about a downturn or a down market, which I'm just going to say is just the weather, the economy, and the way things that will shift, good, bad, or otherwise, right? We should constantly be assessing the actions that we take and the habits, and also our goals change, the environment changes. So is what I'm doing right now going to help me achieve my goals? What changes do I need to make? And I think when we talk about the winners have always been doing what's hard first. They've always been doing the hard work and they've always been doing more of it. But the ones who continue to thrive when tumultuous times, I don't think I said that word right, but I tried, are the ones who are willing to make adjustments. And it's funny because the people who who used to work for me would hear the way that I advise people on selling right now, they'd think that they'd be like, all right, what have you done with Nick? Because I was old school, pick up the phone, hit the door, grind. Email was a 4-letter word. And if you DM somebody, the physical violence I would bring down upon you, that's all wrong. That's all wrong. And the math doesn't math anymore. So me, a stubborn, arrogant sales career professional, is constantly reevaluating the actions that I take and talking to the people about how can we reevaluate the actions that you take.
Yep. Yeah, that's the Jordan Belfort speech. Your girlfriend think you're a loser? Pick up the phone. Bill collector's calling. Pick up the phone. I left the F words out, but yeah, that's where you came from. By the way, I will address the boogeymen briefly because I think everybody's heard it. The title again is Freight Downturn, What Winners Do to Gain Ground, with my friend Nick Klingensmith. But you and I both work with freight brokerages and transportation companies, trucking companies, warehousing companies, freight tech, the conferences. So we talk to all those people, both of us, and then we talk about once a week or so and what's going on. And I talk to a lot of people, and it feels like the market is still down. It's been down since COVID. And that you said it just now, it's the weather. It doesn't matter. If it's hot, you go out and do your job. If it's cold, you go out and do the job.
But you wear different clothes.
Yeah, wear different clothes, but you have to go out and do this. And to some extent, and again, I'm as guilty of all this as anybody else, I want the wind at my back. I want 2% interest rates. I want VCs investing in the space. I want volumes to be sky high. And then I want to say that I'm successful. But that is asking that the world make me successful, not me make me successful. And that's just not how it works. If you want to be successful, you have to do the stuff. And these boogeymen, whether it's AI or consolidations or tight margins, they're all there. We still have to do our job. And so I think everybody on LinkedIn talks about what's going on. And there's always people who are still advancing. As we're talking right now, DAT bought Convoy from Flexport. Flexport bought up the remains of Convoy, their technology, which was fantastic from what I understand. I had demos on it before. And they grew it and then sold it to DAT. And you look and go, yeah, so the industry leaders, they're not afraid to keep going. They're growing like weeds. They're doing the right stuff. And you can tell yourself they have investment dollars and all that, but their costs are higher. They have their own problems with being really big and successful. So I think the excuses that we want to use, which is it's a down market, just means we're going to have to be a little different. So next, Nick, I wrote down some problems that you talked to me about before we hit the record button. What are the problems that all these companies, whether freight brokerage, trucking companies, warehousing companies, freight tech companies, what problems are they hearing from the customers these days?
One of the unique problems, meaning that unique to this time that people are hearing about, are, as I wrote down, they're not willing to make a decision. They are freezing all buying decisions. They are unwilling to make a change during the time because they are concerned about uncertainty.
Yes, so whether it's the tariffs or the AI or
market, and they have substantial cause for concern because of how things could play and just the uncertainty of how things could play out. And if you ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers. Now, we talk about excuses, right? Sometimes these are sales excuses that can be overcome, that we didn't oversell that. But that's one of the issues that people are having right now, is that they've got proposals out there and then they're getting a response, almost a canned response. This is, hey, we went through an official freeze, no purchasing, no major decisions or changes.
I've run into this a lot where people say last year they could spend the budget. Now they're saying, I got to go ask my boss. Yes, I want to do this, Joe. Let me ask the boss. And then you're like 3 weeks later, did you talk to your boss? Vacations, and everything gets dragged out. And people who could spend money last year now have to talk to the team. It seems I've heard this a lot more. Things are team decisions in general. And I think during down times, it's a lot of times going higher up and ask the big boss.
There's always somebody in that company who is empowered to make a decision. It's just whether or not we ask that person or not.
Yeah. So that's the one big problem. And I've heard that one, which is people are, and when we're talking about shippers, or in the case of freight tech companies, we're hearing the same from the logistics and transportation guys and warehousing guys who are just saying, we're a little scared right now because we're not growing. Our margins are tight. And there's another one, and it's a biggie. People don't answer the phone. Talk about that, Nick. What would you tell your old team at Blue Grays when they say people don't answer the phone?
I'll tell you this. I'm just going to call myself out, because in 22 and 23, where this problem already existed, it was, let's just bang out more. And we did get creative. We started getting creative because that was when, what I call, we blitzed them. And this is not for nothing. This is what I do now too. If you're getting a contact from me, within 2 weeks time, you will hear from me in emails, LinkedIn DMs, Sales Navigator DMs. I will call you. I will text you. If you are public profile on another social media platform, you will hear.
Yeah, Nick, I was surprised to find you. You live 10 states away, but you were on my porch the other morning when I woke up.
Hey, you got to find these people. You got to find them. Like I said, I was a PI for a long time. It's not anymore that people won't take your call. They just don't take calls. And so it is a challenge. And now we're also met with a different challenge, which is, if I send you an email, I don't know why I said that so weirdly. If I send you an email, you receive 400 other emails, mostly through automation, all in the same day. The LinkedIn, that Sales Navigator, again, AI, automation. So there's just this overwhelming saturation of communication and red dots that people are being fed, which makes them wholly unresponsive. And you saw that I had a doctor phone call that I almost didn't pick up because it looked like spam. So that is a problem that a lot of people are facing.
Yeah, that is very common now, where I look at my phone. First on my phone identifies a lot of these calls as spam. And I always wonder, should I answer it anyway because it's spam? Maybe it's a customer. But there's a lot of people who say, if it's not saved in my phone, I'm not picking it up. So getting back to these problems, a lot of shippers don't want to make a change, don't want to make a decision. And that's, again, there's some uncertainty out there. The tariff stuff, who knows what's going on? The economy is not horrible, but it's not. There's definitely, our part of the economy is not booming. Budget freezes, just a constrained market, and people aren't answering the phones. What is the solution to all this, Nick? What are you advising, and what are the best companies doing right now?
So I just want to level set one thing, which is, this is not that unique of a time. It's not. We talk about it all the time. So we make it a problem. And it is, I'm not saying it's not a problem, but it's also not that unique. And you know what? One thing would be easier. If the economy sucked right now, it would be easier. It's the uncertainty that is causing people to not make moves and decisions. The answer of what the winners are doing, because I'm talking to them too, the ones who are thriving now, at least, like, if you talk to 10 people in the logistics space, 2 of them say they're crushing it while standing next to a Lambo, and the other 8 people are saying that the market sucks. One of the guys standing next to a Lambo, it's not his Lambo, but he's still crushing it. So people are winning. And those people, though, were winning before. They were winning in the good times. They're winning in the bad. They'll keep winning. And the way that they do this is, number one, they are wildly specific about what they do well, what problems they solve, and who they help. They are wildly specific. They don't use generic words. They say, I work with people like this to solve this problem. They've always done that. Now, what change have they made during this time? They had to get more granular. A lot of these people, instead of saying, hey, I have these 3 product lines I like to talk about all the time, say, hey, I talk about this one thing now. So wildly specific. And so I know this is one of the things that people do, is they start opening up the floodgates and, hey, we'll sell everything we can, just keep the income coming in. And what you do is you dilute your quality.
I'm everything to everyone. That's what I am.
Recipe for failure. Go, great. You're the Walmart of logistics, except you're not, because Walmart's good at logistics.
Yeah. When you say you're everyone, you're everything to everyone, you're really nobody to everyone.
And so it is uncomfortable to say, and I'll be honest, there's same thing. I am pushing speaking opportunities right now, speaking. And even though I'm trying to speak to sales teams, I'm trying to speak to them virtually, I'm actually not trying to pitch coaching. I'm trying to do the one thing really right now. Now, if someone hires me for a speaking thing and it goes well, would they not want to talk to me about coaching at some point? So if you sell your one thing, you could still sell the other two, but get wildly specific because the differentiator is the prop is one thing.
Yep. I've talked to a lot of young people call me, and not so much anymore about this, but they used to say, I have to make 50 phone calls a day. And I always say, what does your company do best? And if it's, we do retail best, then make all your 50 phone calls to retail companies. Don't call companies that you don't specialize in. And there, by the way, all the niches that we have, if you want to call it a market segmentation, are huge. So if you say, all I do is I do oil field stuff, that's enough. There's a lot of oil field stuff. If all you say, we're really good at automotive, then say, or automotive aftermarket or automotive inbound, whatever it is, you want to say, this is what we specialize in. And I say this all the time. Don't just say it, become it. So if you say, yeah, I want to do automotive logistics, there's an automotive logistics magazine. Do you get it? Do you go to the conferences those guys go to? What are you doing to make sure you're the very best in that space, most knowledgeable in that space? Because they don't want to hear somebody who dabbles in their specialty.
Which is actually leads us to that kind of second part. So then you have to get wildly specific about who you sell to. And for example, as I'm going through and introducing myself to various sales leaders and executives in logistics, when I'm going through my network and I go, oh, wow, hey, this guy used to be in freight. Now he's a VP of sales for SaaS. No, I'm not sending him a message right now. I'm going after this. It's because I'm going after this. I want to be the expert in this. I want to be the guy. So that focus, wildly specific, find the one customer. By the way, for most individual books of business, one customer a month will triple your business. Find the one. I know somewhere in the back of their head, or probably out loud, someone is saying, hey, we're already doing that, which I would argue. But what's different about the time? Like, how does that help us right now? And because I want to say that the companies who are afraid of changing, that's your job to sell them past that your solution is better than the uncertainty of things that we can't control. And the reason that niching down is because the people who are succeeding, they're still selling in the same economy that you are. They're still facing the same margin compressions. They're still facing the same economic fears and concerns. But when you have to add that criteria, is this someone who is willing to consider making a change? Do they have a need that's big enough? Just because you have a good product doesn't mean it's good enough for those people to need to change what they're doing.
Yep. Nick, I've said it many times on the podcast. I'll say it many more times. I've advised large shippers on how to select 3PLs and freight partners. And I always say the same thing. Don't let them learn on your dime. And it's true. For the most part, if you're a big company, why would you take the risk with working with someone who doesn't know anything about us? And you're going to have to gain your expertise. You probably can't call Walmart and say, hey, we'd like to do this for you when you've not done it anywhere else. You might have to start small, but as individuals, we can all just get better and better at this. And I always feel like the conversation, if I talk to retailers all day and I say, what's your biggest problem? Or I look it up online, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm reading their magazines, I go to their conferences. At some point I go, I don't do a ton of it. I know that, but I understand all the problems they have. I understand the unique needs of that industry. Because I niche down, I can show up with confidence. Even as I'm beginning, I say, I know all their competition. We work with one of them. And now I can start to have a better conversation, which leads to some confidence. Because I think the challenge traditionally, if I think about the freight brokers, make 100 phone calls a day. Here's the list. and a lot of times you're calling the dead list, right? As you're calling the dead list, people who haven't shipped with us in a year. And it's just a wild group of people. And there's no niche. There's nothing in common with these shippers. I think that kills confidence. I think that makes your life feel miserable. Like you go, I talked to a retail guy this morning. I talked to a guy in the oil field in the afternoon. Now I'm talking to an automotive guy. I know nothing about any of this.
And here's something about, we don't talk about this part enough. Even now, we're talking about this season that we're in. Most of the people who will hear this message, an overwhelming majority of the people in the logistics industry on the sales end of it, they're going to be at this a while. And so when you're focusing on that niche and living in around that niche and becoming an expert in that niche, the people that are telling you no today are going to be VPs of operations at your next shipper next year. The people that are your shipping manager are going to be making decisions somewhere. Like, you are building relationships, and it's going to exponentially build.
Yes. So again, getting back to the solutions, one of the solutions, be wildly specific about what you do, the problems you solve, and why you're better than your competition. Second is niche down, pick a niche, be an expert. By the way, I say this not to prop up us podcasters, but being on a podcast and somebody finding you on a podcast and saying, oh, Nick Klingensmith, he's not a sales guy. Nick Klingensmith's an expert. I heard him talking on podcasts. I think creating content puts you out of the sales realm. I've had this experience myself. I remember calling somebody who signed up for one of my webinars, and I was doing Mexico cross-border stuff a long time ago. And this woman, I called her because she signed up for my webinar, and she was short with me, not rude, just said, oh yeah, I'm not interested. Click. Next morning, I woke up, went to check my email, and it was an email from her saying, hey, Joe, I think you called me yesterday. I was short with you. Please call me back. I called her back. She goes, Joe, I'm so sorry. You called yesterday afternoon and I was rude. I go, no, you weren't rude, just a little short. And she said, I'm looking forward to the webinar. And she was very open on it. Now, we didn't get the business, but she was very open and honest about what they were doing, how they were doing it. And I thought, what changed? What changed was she perceived me as an expert who was leading a webinar on cross-border. I could teach her that. The day before, I was a sales guy who was bothering her in the middle of her busy day. And so I think sometimes there's an opportunity when you become that expert, you create content that puts you in a different light.
You begin to focus on, you think, it helps you to think in terms of your prospect's perspective. And we talked about this earlier, what I call like the founders something, I forget what the word I used, but the problem of, I have an awesome product, it should sell itself.
And that's all I talk about. I don't know about your problem. I know about my solution. That's it.
Yeah, like, my solution is awesome. You should know this already. And you see a lot of that. And I've seen it with the amount of people who just had a good idea, started their own company, and then are upset that nobody's buying. It's like, yeah, man, you have to, I tell you, man, the best thing that I have in terms of being a speaker and a coach for my business isn't my story. It's my sales. It's that I'm a salesperson and I'm learning my craft. And as I get better and better at talking about it and knowing what it is that being able to better articulate how what the outcomes will be, it'll be even easier to continue to sell it because I'm a salesperson. There's so many talented speakers out there who post and pray, and I get imposter syndrome when I see their content. But when I talk to them, they're like, dude, the phone ain't ringing. I'm like, yeah, people aren't looking for us.
Yes. This is the dilemma of content creators also, is they go, I have tons of people follow me, so I don't have to call anybody. Yeah, you do. Anyway, first, be wildly specific about what you do and the problems you solve and why you're better than your competition. Next, you need to niche down, and not just niche down, become an expert in that space, not just a sales guy, become that resource. Nobody's looking, when your toilet gets clogged, you're not looking for a sales guy, you're looking for an expert. So become that expert. And I think that means you can create some content. There's so many great ways to create content, whether it's podcasts, videos, articles. The world has opened up, and you just have to make an effort. And Nick, it's funny, I was on LinkedIn not so long ago, and I was looking at some videos on LinkedIn, and there's Nick's videos, every other video. Oh, this guy's killing it on here. So you not only do you sell all day, but then when you're done, you make content.
I actually do most of my content. I do most of my posting in the morning. As we talk about habits and routine, the shirtless post-workout motivational blurbs that people like to make fun of me for are, well, which fine. That's they're post-workout. Therefore, I actually post them usually in the morning or whatever, but it is part of it. And it is part of creating a cadence of communication is what I like to call it.
So the next thing, that kind of brings us to the next thing. I wrote this down before we hit the record button. You said you got to get creative in the messaging. And I added to that, Nick, that in these, I'll call difficult times or perceived difficult times, we get tight, we clench, right? Like we lose our creativity because we're worried. Worry is the kind of the opposite of being creative. So take a deep breath, think creatively, and make better messaging, because the messaging doesn't always cut through the clutter these days.
So it's funny. I don't know if I told you this earlier, if it was before the show, but I mentioned when I was a kid and I was selling these board games, these Vineyardopoly board games, and how they were really an expensive ticket item and I couldn't really get anybody to buy them. And so I told this wild story about how Bill Clinton, who was vacationing on the island at that time, had come in for a run that morning, bought a game, had some coffee, had some lemon poppy muffins, and then left. And I was just telling this story over and over again to tourists.
You were lying. Yeah. Okay.
No, yeah, I totally made it up. I had never seen it before. And they bought all the games. And I used to stand outside when I was like even younger, and you were selling things to all your friends and neighbors or something as a kid. I used to stand outside the supermarket and sell tickets to stuff. Why do we shrink down and think we have to act different as we get older? And I'm not saying be stupid or unprofessional, but number one, have a little fun. It's got to be fun for other people. That said, no matter how great your message is, it is going to be in the same inbox as 200 other messages that those people do not want to see. So we need a couple things here. We need to get creative. We should be setting a message. We should be setting videos that are specific and tailored to those people, but we also need to be consistent. We need to continuously do it. It's not a rejection. It's math. Until they say no, for all you hit up in the spam folder.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes when you're sending a message, you're like, oh God, you're writing that message and you go, sent that message out. I hope that they don't perceive me as desperate. I hope they don't feel this way about, I hope they don't. And what that is ego. They are worried about their own problems. They aren't worried about you. And so when you put all of this, you're overthinking it. Hey, I'm sending Nick a note and I'm trying to convey that I'm successful and I want this and I want that and I can help him and I'm a great guy. Your job isn't to think about what Nick thinks. You just create the content and send it. And I think this is a little off topic, but I think there's a lot of parallels. I saw Robert Greene, great author, and he was talking about seduction. And he said the great seducers in history, and that is sometimes a sales guy. He said what they do really well, better than the rest of us, is they don't think about themselves at all. They don't wonder, is this soup make me look fat? They don't think, am I coming off cheesy? They are so focused on what that other person wants. They figure that out. So they aren't me focused. They're focused on the other person. And I think that's so important. And again, the ego that we all bring to this party, which is, what do they think of me? That's not how this seduction
Can you imagine if you really had to be honest with yourself, and if you were honest with let's say, can you imagine calling your mortgage company and saying, hey, listen, I'm going to be a little short this month because I was afraid of how someone's silence might make me feel. So I'm going to be behind, because not that I was afraid somebody was going to be mean, but that they were going to be quiet and I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, Nick, it's funny because we build these things up. I saw this was a meme the other day and it said, I delayed this task for 7 months. Today I accomplished it. It took me 12 minutes. I will learn nothing from this. And I thought, how many of us have something on our list that just keeps staying on our list? And I said this to you today. I said this to you this morning before we hit record. I said, hey, Did you talk to, and you said, I didn't get that business for 2 reasons. The first reason is I didn't call them yet.
You just bring up a good point, though. I think that's really relevant right now. One of the mental issues that we're facing is because we're hearing all the noise, because it is factual, because we are behind, all of a sudden the mountain is too high and we don't think it's worth it. But I just cannot stress enough how consistent action it builds momentum. It's the only thing that's ever got anyone anywhere. And by taking those obnoxious steps, you know the formula, especially if you're someone who's been on top before and you're struggling right now. You know the formula. Pick up the phone.
Yep. And by the way, getting back to the messaging, this is the time when you can getting a little tight. You're worried. Worry kills creativity, and you have to get out of that. You got to take a deep breath and say, hey, you know what? When I was young, I wasn't afraid of any of this. Somehow I became corporate and I started fearing becoming the fool. I act the fool with my friends all the time. So send that message. And if somebody says, hey, I didn't like your message. So
Good.
what?
Thanks for the information.
So what? I told you this, I think, and this is instructive for me to remind myself. Years ago when I was writing, I wrote an article for one of my customers and they didn't like the title. They said it's a little edgy. And because they were sending it to their email newsletter list. And I said, don't change anything. It's just right. And they wanted to change the title and they were changing it from, I use the term spicy burrito, and they wanted to turn it into an oatmeal. Everybody can tolerate oatmeal. No one craves oatmeal. Some people can't eat spicy burritos, but a lot of people crave spicy burritos. So you're gonna, when you send that spicy burrito message out there, some people are going to go, oh, I can't touch that. That's not for me. But no one wants oatmeal. If your messaging comes off as generic and boring, where all the sharp edges have been taken off, you lose. It just doesn't appeal to anybody. It doesn't cut through the clutter. So I think getting back to that newsletter I sent out, the customer called me right after and said, hey, we had 14 people send us messages and say, remove them from the unsubscribe me. And I was like, yeah, they didn't read the whole article. And then they said, but we were asked to speak at 2 conferences. I said, that is the perfect message. It upset some people. And again, it shouldn't have upset them.
Those people weren't going to buy from you anyway.
And so it was spicy burrito they wanted. And again, I think this is the safe route we want to take. We want to tone it down, go, let's just take it a little down a little bit, and especially as you get a committee going. You get a committee involved in this, it goes from spicy burrito to oatmeal, and that oatmeal appeals to nobody. And I think that's when I'm getting back to the creativity, get a little wild. And you get the emails from the very best people in email will send you this. You check your email and say, this is my last email to you. You go, oh no. And you know it's manipulative. You know what they're doing. And it still works. Ask anybody. It still works. Where you'll see things as, I quit. You're like, oh my God, that guy Nick sent me an email that says he quit. I have to open it up. I guess Nick's got it. Oh, okay. He quit doing something, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, okay. So I think this is the time where you can be a little more creative, because what do you got to lose? Right.
I want to offer something very practical. And this is me giving away the secret sauce a little bit, because
all right,
I like hokey. I like having fun, but that might get an email open, but that's not what people will buy. So we got to do a little bit of both. All right. First, have fun. But number 2, research. I don't just mean Google the company and look at their newsletter. Ask AI. Say, hey, I am trying to craft a message to Joe Lynch at the Logistics of Logistics. I want you to find everything he's ever written and posted, identify the 5 most common themes that are important to him, what problems he talks about, and what do I do that is most likely to help benefit him. You can have some of these conversations. Sometimes you get better than others, but rather than scour the internet, you can find out what might be more important to them. Or you can even ask even more, hey, what does Joe ever post about any sports he's involved with? Or is there any commonalities between us that I can talk about? Or, hey, Does he post about things for his business, or what problems is his business facing? And are there any articles out there that I can send him about those problems and solutions, even if they have nothing to do with me? Create value through it as well. And I guarantee you, your competition ain't doing that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And by the way, when you're a smaller company, again, this is the advantage you have over the larger companies. Sometimes larger companies have large teams that, and again, you have to play a little safer. And they say, hey, you can't send out messages like this. If you're small, you can. So again, I think sometimes people look and say, oh, the big guys, they have the advantage of all that investment dollars. Yeah, they do. But they don't have the advantage of being able to go a little more creative. So Nick, we talked about the solutions to this problem. First, be wildly specific about what you do, the problems you solve, and why you're better than your competition. Niche down, pick a lane and be really good in that niche. And I think we didn't say this, but the best way to pick your niche is to say, where is most of our business already? So if you say our two biggest customers are in automotive inbound, okay, that's what you do. And you can always get another niche when you're done dominating.
You can always expand. Yeah. That's the idea, is that you will move the fastest in that niche.
And you don't have to turn down any other business, clearly. The last thing we just talked about, which is get a little more creative on your messaging. Again, clenching and being worried tends to kill our creativity when we need it the most. What's the last thing you want to talk about when it comes to the solution to this problem?
There's two parts of this, because you won't do the second if you don't do the first part. You have to believe again. You have to believe that this is not nuclear winter. You have to stop listening to the noise and believe that you can achieve and that you can be one of the people winning. You have to tell yourself the story so often until it becomes true in your reality. Because here's the second part of it. Once you've identified that niche that you are awesome at, that you can be an expert at, and the people that it will help the most, and you've crafted the messaging, now you have to do a lot of it. Step 4 is do more. The math doesn't math. When you asked me earlier about what would I do with my people at Blue Grace, I would have told them, because I knew for a fact, if you do X, you will get Y. I studied it for 20 years. It was accurate. The math doesn't math anymore. You find and here's the other thing. The more you do it, the more you can see what's working and what's not. You can't make 3 calls and assess something and say, this sucks. You can make 300 calls or 3,000 calls or send them many emails and start saying, you know what, I can tweak this or do that. But the business is out there. We talk about making 100 calls and stuff like that. And I love seeing the things on LinkedIn, people going back and forth on it. You guys don't even have the same conversation. All right. We're talking about new business acquisition. It might be 50 calls. It might be 150 calls. It's not 10. Right. I guarantee you that it's not 10. It's not 5. And what I'm talking about here is new business acquisition, not bothering the crap out of the shipping manager of your big customer 3 times a week saying, hey man, got anything more for me? That's not sales. That's desperation. All the money you want to make are going to come from people that you've never spoken to before.
Yep. Nick, you've said this to me before. Every time you find yourself talking about, I'm waiting for these guys to sign this, and these guys said they get back to me next week, and as soon as this guy gets back from vacation, when you start that conversation, the answer is do more. You need 10 more. You need 10 more people in that pipeline. You need 20 more people in that pipeline. Whatever it is, the answer is always the same. More. Get more. And it's a funny thing because it's really easy to obsess and you become that kind of that mother hen where you're like, I'm going to hatch these 3 deals. You know what? In reality, one of those deals might happen. If 2 of them happen, you're really happy. Almost never do all 3 of the deals you were hoping for happen. So the idea where you start babying every deal, get more. Anyway, Nick, I'm going to summarize what we talked about there. I want to get your final thoughts on the topic. I'm talking to my friend Nick Klingensmith. We're talking about freight downturn, what winners do to gain ground, whether you're in freight brokerage or a trucking company or warehousing or selling to those guys, the freight tech companies. This is a market that is not great, but to Nick's point, it's just the weather. And there's been bad times before. the best companies, the best people get past it. They get it out of their head that the AI or the consolidation or the tariffs, all the boogeymen will always be there. And you have to get past that. I think we want success without change. We want to win the lotto. We want the wind at our back. When the wind's at our back and the business is flying in the door, there's no mystery to that. That's easy. I think the challenge is in times like this when we do definitely have some shippers who are saying, I'm going to hold up right now. We don't want to make a change. We're also hearing budget freezes. Let me get back to you. We're constrained. Our budget's less than last year. I think there's I've noticed a lot more people involved in the buying process. I think that's going to continue to be the case. Everybody wants to get buy-in, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a new reality. People aren't answering the phones as much. These are all realities, but it doesn't matter. You still have to do your job. So the solutions that Nick talks about is, number one, be wildly specific about what you do, the problems you solve, and why you're better than your competition. And part of that is niching down. You have to pick a niche. You probably already know what the niche is. It's what you guys already do best. It's what you might know best. And if you're somebody who says, I don't have a niche, I just started in this business, I would say figure out what your company does best. And then as soon as you pick a niche, you say, hey, our most profitable business is with this kind of customer. That's your niche. Become an expert in it and work on it until you figure out that's not our niche anymore. Beyond niching down, these times kill creativity. People start getting a little tight, and tightness and worry kills creativity right when we need it the most. We need creative solutions. And I think the world has given us so many opportunities now to create content, to be different, to stand out, to cut through that clutter. You can make videos, you can do podcasts, you can create articles. There's people right now, if you think you can't do it, go on LinkedIn right now and look at somebody you're connected to who has thousands of interactions on a post. How'd they do that? Right? And by the way, that's not your day job. You have to do that after you've made all your sales calls. You said beyond that, we need to stop shrinking. You need to start believing again. And then last but not least, you have to do more right now. Do more of all this. It's not about, oh, I did it. I made my 5 phone calls. I sent my 6 emails. No, it's got to be 10 times all that. Enough of my blather. Put a big old bow on this one, Nick Klingensmith. Final thoughts of the topic.
On that last note of the self-belief is to ratchet up expectations. This is not the time to start fighting for scraps. This is not the time to compromise margins and payment terms. This is not the time to say, oh, we'll take less. It's the time to ratchet up. If you're having budget issues, sell to people with more money. All right. Sell to people with more volume. Pick the bigger whales. Customers are having real problems. Customers are still making decisions. Don't shrink. If you have something to offer, find the people who will benefit from it and convince them that you are the solution.
Excellent. Excellent. Nick, what I'll do is I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. I will also put a link to all any videos. You've got 2 books. What are your 2 books?
Through the Fire, which is my memoir, and Selling Inspired, the mental endurance guide for an enduring sales performance.
Very nice. Very nice. What I'll do is I'll put a link to the books, articles, anything you've got. Do you have the video of BCS, Broker Carrier Summit?
I have a playlist that I posted some clips from it on my YouTube channel. I did not post the whole video.
Give me the links. We'll put those in the show notes.
Will do.
And do you know what conference? I know we're right in the middle of summer and some people are heading to conference, but I don't think everyone's going till fall. What conferences will we see you at in the near future? I know we'll see Broker Carrier Summit in Orlando.
I was going to say, I definitely plan on making the trip out there. It's 2 hours away. I would be negligent not to. And that is probably it. Right now, I am focused on the conference that wants me to speak at it.
Okay. So your customers are conference organizers who are looking for speakers, and they all are. They're looking for speakers like Nick Klingensmith.
My wildly specific niche would be VPs of sales leaders in the logistics space who have medium to large size teams who may or may not be throwing conferences, but may also have sales meetings or virtual meetings as well. That's my wildly specific. I, of course, will speak other places, but that's who I'm after.
I love it. I love it. Nick, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Again, I'll put a link to all your socials and all that, so people can reach out and talk to you. Again, you've coached me, you've coached a lot of my friends. Everyone who I've recommended you to have said great things. So highly recommend you working with you. Anyway, thank you so much, pal.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.